All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming to the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board, um, Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Let's go ahead and start with the roll call, please.
Sure thing, Chair. Gabriel Maya,
Here.
Marie Rodriguez. Here. Jürgen Hohn.
Here.
Anthony Dispenzieri.
Present.
Sarah Horseman. Here. Ed Park.
Present.
Pablo Nava Duran.
Here.
Corey Munson.
Present.
Veronica Sharma.
Present.
Valerie Tilson.
Here.
Thank you. It looks like we are just missing Lauren Kroll at this time. With that, we have a quorum of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and move on with public comment. Do we have any corresponding public comment for today's agenda?
I've not received any yet. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you're called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you're attending the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. We do not have anyone online with their hand raised. I have not received any public comment cards in person.
Okay, very good. Let's move on to 8.3.4, the approval of the agenda. I do understand that we do have a change on the agenda on item B2. Can we get more clarification on that, please?
Yes, the applicant has to come back at a later meeting, so we will not hear item B2 tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Having that said, the change of B2, can I get a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes for the agenda of Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026 of the Neighborhood Advisory Board, Ward 3?
Marie Rodriguez for the record with the amending of the B2 to the agenda. I make a motion that we approve it.
Corey Munson, second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Right, motion carries. Go ahead. Let's go ahead right now. Mr. Vice Mayor is not present. He did let me know that he is on his way. So he said to move on with the agenda. And once he comes back, he will jump in and do his item. So let's go ahead and move on to item 5A for the staff liaison report.
Great, thank you, Chair. Just a few announcements today. First, you'll see that the development project that we are hearing today is going to the Planning Commission meeting this Thursday. So I would recommend, if you have feedback, to fill out your sheets here in person and give them to me before you leave if possible. If not, the cutoff to getting comments submitted to the Planning Commission before the meeting is about noon on Thursday. So if you scan it and send it to me, I can get it to them before the meeting. I have something to share preemptively for the city strategic plan. Don't feel the need to scan this QR code. I believe it's not active until June 10th. So I will reshare it via email when the survey is active, but the last step of the strategic plan will be presented to the city council at the June 10th meeting. So after that, the survey will go live and you'll be able to take a look and fill it out. But I believe those links are active on the city's website, Reno.gov/government, and then strategic priorities. So like I said, I just wanted to share this for visibility, and then I will make sure to email it out once the survey is active. But let's see, I do not think I have any other announcements, but happy to answer questions if anyone has any.
Were you going to mention that other one, or is that later? The topic that the meeting for a future meeting, is that?
I was hoping we could do it during Vice Mayor's.
Yeah.
So if he, for some reason, does not show up, we'll talk about it. Does that sound good? Perfect.
All right, thank you very much for that. Let's go ahead and move on with the agenda with item B1. With the LDC 26-000 74. For the Sequid conditional use permit.
Yes, we have the applicant here. He does not have a presentation. I do have a map to kind of get the body oriented with the property. Anwar, if you want to provide any information on this project, and then the board will just ask questions.
Basically, I bought this property since in 2005, and it has always been a 2-bedroom house that I've rented it several times. In between, I ran a couple of times my business office for the business. And last 5 years, I've been renting it to a mother and daughter. So I want to remodel that house, and I'm not getting the financing for it because it's zone GC. So I came to City of Reno to get the zoning changed to a residential. It has always been a residential. And I remember one time I was standing outside on the steps. Some gentleman from county walked up and he says, are you running a business? I said, it's an office, not a business. But anyways, so after that, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden the zoning was changed to GC. But I want to remodel that house, and I cannot get the finance for it because it's general commercial. So I want to convert that back to a residential. And it has always been, this house has been built in 1948. And I have lived there and I've rented that house. And last 5 years, someone is living in there as a residence. So I request that zoning to be changed back to residential, so I can get the finance to remodel the house.
Thank you.
Jorgen Hohen, question. Could you state your name for the record,
My
please?
first name is Anwar, Anwar, and my last name is Siddiqui, Siddiqui.
Anthony Dispensary, question. How did it get swapped? Obviously, it used to be a house, or it is a house.
It is.
How did it go from being a house to general commercial? They did it without your.
Like I said, this was years back, and I was standing on my steps, and some gentleman walked in and says he's from Washoe County, and he asked me, but I had no idea at that time why he was asking. But anyways, he asked me so at that time I did have an office in there. So, and I don't know why he did it, or until today, I don't know what happened there.
Follow up. Do we know, is this zoning a city issue or a county issue? Because he's talking about a county person showing up and doing this, but I don't know if anybody knows if it's either. Because obviously this is this is a Ward 3 city specific.
It could have been a city person,
Yeah.
but but I understood it was a county guy, but it could have been a city person. But this one, like I said, is years back.
Yeah, the reason I ask is just because I think it would be helpful to, when they come back, just to understand how it even happened in the first place. If there's any records on it, I didn't know where you would go to find that, or if anybody does, but.
Veronica Sharma for the record. Do we know what the surrounding APNs and what their zoning is? Could we maybe pull up
I can
the
find it.
GIS? Thank you.
If someone else wants to answer a question, I'm going to try to find it just in the meantime.
Well, I know that this is Anthony Dispensary for the record. I know I use the car wash and it's right next door. So I'd imagine that one at least is commercial, but I'd have to imagine that everything to the left of it has to be residential, and it looks like a house just like everything else would be. So it's surprising to see that would be zoned any differently than the rest of the neighborhood.
Yeah, my neighbor, the same size of a lot, it has 2 houses.
Mm-hmm.
One facing the Burn Street, one Claremont, and they're both residential. And right next to it, there's 5 apartments there, all of them all the way to Wheeler. They're all houses.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. You said that this gentleman asked you about it being a house and you telling him it was an office and you said that was years ago. When did you become aware that it had been rezoned?
Until I applied for I went to the bank to get a financing to remodel it.
Uh-huh.
And they said they cannot finance it because it's zoned general commercial.
And that was what,
Just a couple of months back.
a couple months back? And up until now, have you been paying property taxes like it was a house?
Yeah.
Have you been getting a bill like it's a house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Corey Munson for the record. Just want to say sorry you had to deal with that kind of bureaucracy.
Oh. Yes.
This is a Ed Park board member for, I just want to say we live in a city that is desperate for residential housing, especially affordable housing. And we also live in a time where a lot of commercial properties are empty. They can't find any tenants. So I think it's really important for us to support any kind of conversion from commercial to residential to allow for more residential housing in this city.
Anthony Dispenzary, one more comment just on for what Marie said. I do think that's pertinent because whenever they would have changed the zoning, I imagine that the property tax would have changed. And so it may be pertinent to the city to understand when exactly that changed, to understand whether or not you were owed money or if the city owes you money, or, at what point it should be, because I'm sure they'll have to rezone it back and then maybe the property tax changes again at that point. But you may have been paying something different than you expected. If it's totally different, zoning, and for how long, we don't really know.
You might be right, but I never really paid any attention to it until I applied for the loan on it. So, in fact, the appraiser came in and he said he cannot appraise it because it's a GC. So at that point, I started doing this process to get zoning changed.
And I'm sorry, Marie Rodriguez again for the record. And just for clarification, up until now, you had been renting it out to family and it's been used as a residence?
Yes, ma'am.
How long was it used as an office back when?
This was maybe 2011.
Yeah, but how long? For how long?
Oh, not too long though. Maybe a couple of months, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So other than those 2 months, it's always been used as a residence?
That's it. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Keep a reminder for the record. And what kind of what kind of renovation are you trying to do in the property that you're seeking the loan for?
First of all, it's a very old building. The siding has to go, which is asbestos. And the inside needs to be, years back, I did the new floor on everything. I want to redo the whole thing inside to look like a nice house. The complete siding, it has a kitchen, it has one bathroom in it, 2 bedrooms in it, and a living room. But all these are very old. The tenants that I have right now it's a very low income, handicapped daughter. So they've been there for 5 years. They're just paying me $1,200 rent though. So I'm hoping that I could completely redo that house.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Any other questions from the board? All right. Well, thank you so much and good luck with your project.
Chair, I did not receive any public comment for that item.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before we proceed, we could go back to the agenda item A4 for the
Vice Mayor's open to doing it at the end of the meeting if the board doesn't mind.
fantastic. No issue with that. All right, then let's continue on with the business items. So C1. Do we have the presenter present?
Yes, we do.
Fantastic. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Brittany Avila for the record.
Brittany,
you
you
so
can
much,
use
and-
the clicker on the
Clicker,
video.
perfect,
Yes.
thank you. All right, well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. So today, my goal is to just talk about supporting healthy adolescent development in this new digital age. Kids and teenagers and adolescents are growing up in a digital space that looks very different from what we grew up in. And so navigating that is starting to become a challenge. And so I'm going to go through kind of some of the issues that we're seeing and trends we're seeing, and then what we can do as a community and neighborhoods to help. So first, it's not working. There we go. So what we're seeing is adolescence is changing a little bit more than it used to be. We now are seeing a delayed adolescence as well. So developmental psychology is extending it into the 20s. But what we're seeing is with children ages 13 to 17, almost all of them, about 95%, are using social media, have access to smartphones on a regular basis. And almost a third of them are saying that they use this almost constantly in their day-to-day life. We know from research that 3 hours a day or more can double the risk of anxiety and depression for teenagers. And the average use right now is around 5 or more hours per day. So we know that there's some problems. So some trends we're seeing related to this excessive use of screen time. We are seeing increases in major depressive episodes. So the little gray bar in this graph is right around the time cell phones became more ubiquitous. So 2010 is around the time that the iPhone came out. 2012 is about the time where at least 70% or more of people said that they owned cell phones. And you can see right around that time period, just an sharp increase in both girls and boys major depressive episodes that has been continuing all the way to today. This is only 2022 data, but we're still seeing the same data of major depression from ages 12 to 17 dramatically increasing, 135 to 160% increase. We're also seeing increases in suicide rates among boys and girls. It flips here a little bit. Boys always have a higher suicide rate than girls, so we do see that normally. But again, that gray bar is right around the time where cell phones became a little bit more ubiquitous. So access to technology became easier for our teenagers. So ages 10 to 14, we've seen since 2010 a really, really sharp increase in suicide rates in our children and school-age children, which is very concerning. We're also seeing teens engaging less in adult activities, and you could argue some of these might be a good thing for them. But we're seeing teens drop since the 1970s in trying alcohol. They're delaying getting their driver's license or working for pay. So those adult-like activities we're training our teenagers for, they're engaging in less. And then those social activities, they're engaging in sex less often, they're engaging in dating less often than ever before. And it's dropping pretty precipitously around kind of that 2015 time mark. We're also seeing different trends in how teenagers use media. So since 2006, we've seen a very, very sharp increase. That dark black line is the increase in the internet usage from teenagers. The more concerning part to me as an educator is that sharp decrease in that gray line, where they're reading books and magazines a lot less frequently. TV is that middle one that's staying kind of the same. It's dropping a little bit, but that might be because teenagers are watching TV on the internet. So we're seeing that kind of up there. And then that socialization, we're seeing the declines in them hanging out with friends. So this is just hanging out with friends, having kind of little parties at people's houses or socializing with their friends. You can see again that line around 2012 is when the majority started owning smartphones, and you can see it dip precipitously right around that time frame. We're not sure that cell phones are the only excuse for these declines, but we can see that there is some type of link to this digital area. And so why are we seeing these? Well, the brain in adolescence is kind of hardwired for what digital technology is designed to do. So in our brain, we have the prefrontal cortex, which is that front part of our brain. That is our air traffic controller. That deals with our problem solving, our time management, impulse control, inhibition, all those things we're really struggling for our adolescents to learn at that time period. That part of our brain is actually not fully developed until about 25, whereas the amygdala and limbic system kind of in the middle of our brain is actually enlarged in adolescence. It shrinks back down as we age around, again, the 25 year marker. So what we're seeing in our adolescents is that their amygdala that is more responsive to emotions, to reward pathways, to social interactions and stress responses is actually enlarged and heightened. So when teenagers tell you, oh, this is the best love I've ever experienced, they're not wrong. It actually is the best love you'll ever experience because it's the most emotional you'll ever feel. But yet that executive control is not fully online. So they'll have heightened sense of emotion, heightened sense of stress, heightened sense of social connections without the ability to really regulate and monitor that. And so they're kind of primed right where that digital technology is specifically designed to tap into that reward pathway that is so heavily for them without their ability to control and inhibit the responses in there. And so one thing that we are starting to think about is might be a cause of what this is between the mental health effects of digital screen time we're seeing and this kind of the screen time is maybe that something's relating sleep deprivation. So if anybody has had teenagers or dealt with teenagers or taught teenagers, you've probably seen a lot of these symptoms in them. They're very moody, a little aggressive, poor impulse control, increased risk of injury, laziness, increased anxiety and depression. These are all symptoms of sleep deprivation that we're seeing. And so one thing we're thinking of is what happens when we enter puberty is our circadian rhythm actually changes. So teenagers actually need to go to bed later and wake up later, which is very different from little kids and adults. Because that's the time that the melatonin kind of releases in the body. And no amount of telling them to go to bed earlier really helps, unfortunately. So what we're seeing is with kind of school times being really early, we have to wake them up early. But with access to digital screens and phones and smartphones in their bedroom, they're staying up even later than they're supposed to, which they're already kind of supposed to start later. And so we're starting to see these effects. So what can we do about this? Or sorry, one more slide. Why do screens interfere with sleep? Well, we have the blue light exposure, access to notifications. We've seen research that shows that just having your cell phone like in my pocket over there, in my purse over there, activates those reward centers where I'm anticipating those notifications and inhibits my ability to learn or retain information. Emotional stimulation, doom scrolling. We all doom scroll in the middle of the night, probably. It's harder again because of that prefrontal cortex not being developed for teenagers to stop that process. And we're seeing academic effects now. So we're starting to see these are PISA scores. So the PISA is the Program for International Student Assessment. This is international, kind of the big standardized testing that everybody uses all across the world to compare our students with one another. And we're seeing stark declines in math, reading, science. Our IQ scores have started to decrease for the first time ever. We're starting to see really big declines in attention and academic performance. And so screen time obviously is having some impact. Again, it's not the only impact that's being in this, but it's having some impact. And so what can we do as a community? This is not just an individual problem. It's not that this generation is lazy and horrible. It's that something's impacting them. And so what can we do as parents and a community? So what we want to do, what I'm going to talk about is kind of reducing that social pressure around screen time, helping support family, changing our environments a little bit to be more supportive of the adolescent brain. So what can parents do? Parents can remove devices from the bedrooms. If we get it out of the bedrooms, we support and prioritize sleep, and we say this is your zone for rest, and you do not sit here and doom scroll until the end of time, because I'm already asleep because they trained me when they were babies to go to bed earlier. We try to delay smartphone use. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more because I'm here on behalf of Wait Until 8th, which is a organization that's dedicated to delaying smartphone use. And more importantly, encouraging that in-person socialization, that outdoor unstructured time. Remember when we were kids and we couldn't come home until the lights went off? I think we need maybe a safer version of that, but still kind of getting that back where we're sending them back outside. At Wild Island, I saw a group of girls sitting on their phone, not talking to each other. And I really wanted to go and like grab them from them and force them to talk to each other, but trying to get that social behavior and then modeling healthy technology habits. My kids love to say, if I don't get mine, you don't get yours. And I say, you're right. And I put mine away too. So Wait Until 8th is an organization where it's a pledge that you take to wait until at least the end of 8th grade, it may be even longer, again, to kind of delay that access and get them being more explicit about how we give it to them and what we say to them when we're interacting with technology. It helps reduce that social pressure because once enough people in a school pledge in your grade, then they give you that, the organization gives you that access to that information. So when my child says, oh, everybody in my class has a cell phone, I can say, well, these 10 people don't. And so it kind of helps us feel as parents that we have people that are doing the same thing and reduces that kind of pressure and connects you with other families so that you can have a social support system. We've been growing, which shows a really big need in the Reno-Sparks area that people are interested in this. So we began in November with 27 pledges across 12 schools, and we've had a 20 times increase. As of May 5th, we've had 530 pledges across 36 schools. So parents are getting on board. Parents are noticing that we need to do something different, and they're interested in kind of delaying the smartphone use. It's not working again, sorry. Oops. Okay, sorry. So what can we do as a community? This is again a neighborhood advisory meeting. So as a neighborhood, as a community, as a school system, what can we do? And luckily Reno Sparks is already doing some of these things. But we can advocate for more recess, more play, more social interactions. That recess time is actually very valuable, not only for the adolescent brain, but for that social development they're going to need to be able to sit on a board like this eventually, and not talk over everyone and things like that. Opportunities for independence, letting them do things on their own as much as possible, trying to reduce overscheduling them so they can give their brain a rest. Create phone-free spaces. I'm really happy that Washoe County School District has already started this, but trying to get those phones out of certain areas. Using less technology in the classroom to kind of model that we don't always need technology as often and to get them off of those screens. Having community conversations just like this one. And I didn't put it up there, but revisiting delaying the start time for our middle school and high schools eventually as well, and things like that. So just kind of having this conversation. And my big takeaway essentially is that adolescents, they need sleep, they need play, and they need human connection to develop appropriately and happy and healthy. And technology is not inherently bad. We don't want to get rid of it. We don't want them never to have access to this. We just want to start thinking more consciously and deliberately about how we introduce them to it and how we get them to learn how to use it appropriately, in order to support that healthy development. So that was it. And then this is just a slide about wait until 8th if you're interested. Thank you.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Thank you so much for that presentation. One thing that I was really glad to see in what we can do is the parents setting the example.
Yes.
Because while
hard.
kids are doing this, adults are just as guilty.
Just as addicted,
You
yeah.
don't know how many times I've gone out to eat with our family, and we do put our phones away when we're out to eat as a family, but I'm there with my son and his family, the grandkids, and I will see whole family sitting there not having conversation. They're eating together, but they're all on their phones, even mom and dad.
Yeah.
So I think that is, we can't tell our kids, like your kid is saying, we're doing the same thing, mom.
Doing it too.
We need to set the example. The things I think we can do as a community is I know that there are a lot of phone-free activities out there, especially during the summer.
Yes.
I know our local libraries have things. I know a lot of the screen time is spent on video games, but I know that our local libraries have Dungeons and Dragons groups that are the in-person ones, so there's things like that going on that kids can get involved in.
Absolutely.
And also, if we're talking about adolescents, I think one thing that would help them, especially those that are planning on college, that would help their college applications is getting involved in volunteer work. I know we have like local guide dog puppy groups that they could, raise a
adolescents love
puppy,
that.
yeah.
They do.
My son raised a dog through 4-H, a guide dog. And those are things that connect them to the community, give them a really good purpose and look good on a job resume or a college, application. So I would love to see more motivating our teenagers to local community and volunteer opportunities.
Absolutely. I know Wait Until 8th does have, for littler kids, we promote play times without screens, where we just go to a park and everybody can kind of come, but we would love to maybe support more of that for letting our teens know that that's available.
This is Ed Park, board member. First of all, I want to agree with you 100%, 110% about the evils and dangers of social media. It's very predatory, especially on children.
Yeah.
I would, however, depart a little bit from the method of getting to where we want to get, and that is healthy, productive, social children capable of interacting physically and not just digitally. Right now, smartphones are used as a primary point to the internet and also AI, which is, for better or worse, increasingly becoming relevant and important, especially if you want to get a job in the future. And it helps to, at a very early age, to understand AI and how to use it properly, as well as the internet and digital media. And I feel that it's important to teach, educate, as opposed to prohibit, and ban. I would use the example of alcohol. In the United States, alcohol is banned until the age of 21, whereas in other countries, they're a lot more lenient. They can start drinking at 18. They can drink with their parents at restaurants. What happens in other countries is they are trained and taught by their parents, both directly and through role modeling, to be responsible drinkers. They go out to dinner. They have one glass of wine. Their parents monitor them. They make sure they don't get stupid drunk. And the problem in America is, everyone waits till they're 21 when they're in college, when their parents aren't around, and it's time to binge drink. And this is a problem because they have no parental guidance as to how to responsibly deal with alcohol. And I feel that is one of the major problems in America. And it's the same thing with the internet, AI, and social media, and using smartphones. Instead of saying, hey, we'll just ban it until later on in life when we assume that you're more mature, why not allow parents to be directly involved and teach them through role modeling and directly talking to them how to responsibly use AI, the internet, their smartphone, social media. So I would be against outright banning, prohibiting, or even pledging to say I'm not going to use my smartphone or AI or whatever until the 8th grade or whatever, the end of the 8th grade. I truly believe this is an issue of parents being educated, and then parents educating their kids, and then the kids being allowed to watch their parents, and parents being able to watch their children using AI, internet, and the smartphones responsibly.
And if I can add, we actually do agree with you on that. It's not a total full-out ban usually. It's delaying full unrestricted access until at least 8th grade. So definitely having any type of communication device is important nowadays. So having any type of what we call the dumb phones or things like that. And then still having access to the internet, but as you said, with regulations. The analogy I use is that it should be like a car. We shouldn't just give it to them and say, here's the keys, here's what you do. We should have the hours that they have to use in front of us, and we're guiding them and things like that. So I agree completely. Good point.
Thank you.
Veronica Sharma for the record. Dr. Avila, thank you for the presentation.
Yeah.
I loved it. I think just the agenda item, reading off of it, to delay giving children a smartphone until the end of 8th grade, at the very beginning scared me because I understood that as no cell phones at all until you complete 8th grade. But as you were giving your presentation, I was like, just a little more restricted, a little more controlled, a little more guided. So I love that aspect.
And there's tons of different ways to do it. So it doesn't have to be a full ban, or it can be a partial ban, or anything that the parent wants.
Yeah, no, and I love that because the graphs are also synonymous with the fact that we are no longer in the older phase of internet use, where in the 90s and early 2000s, internet was as a read-only phase, versus we've now not even like the next phase was the participatory phase, where we're just socializing with people over the internet, and now we've moved on to the AI phase. So that same concept of using internet is not the same. So the graphs kind of evolved with how society and how the world has evolved. So no, I love it. I think restricted use with controlled and guided and informative skills that we can share with them as adults, as parents, as school, as community is just a fantastic approach. So thank you.
Thank you.
So as a Gen Z, so I know what my friend uses cell phone since middle school and high school. I don't use cell phone until the high school years. So I don't want to say thank you to my parents being restrictive on cell phones, and so I like the presentation. You're being restricted till 8th grade, but I like to more about the country of Australia, where they ban social media use until 16.
Yeah.
And then also technology is very important for them to learn because you never know if AI will take over a job, because they need to learn about AI to handle the jobs.
Yeah, we just need to teach them responsibly, because AI has led to at least 3 suicides from teenagers so far. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're teaching them consciously how to use it, what to look out for. I think a lot of teens are scared of what AI and those deep fakes and things that they're seeing. Some of them are even better at us than it, but kind of walking through and talking with them, I think is very important.
Marie Rodriguez for the record again. Hi. And I am interested in that. I know you showed that depression has increased in teenagers. Do you know what kind of studies have been done as far as connections between overuse of social media and cell phones, and not just depression, but other
Anxiety is also high.
yeah, anxiety, personality disorders, other social disorders. In my work, I'm seeing a huge number of teenagers, and not just teenagers, like middle school through high school age, that are on medication for anxiety, for personality disorders and depression. And it's just concerning to me. When I was in school, I didn't know anybody on medication, you know?
Yeah.
And not just them, but also young adults, like, college age adults. Have there been studies showing correlation between these two?
Yeah, so I'll start with the unsatisfactory answers that our research is very slow, and we don't fully know everything. And access to digital landscapes is not the only reason for those increases in anxiety and depression in our children and teens. But the research on digital access shows mostly that it is increasing anxiety and depression, mostly among those students that might already have issues with anxiety and depression, especially students or teens who are prone to addiction, are struggling kind of the most, because obviously it's designed to get us addicted. And so we do see the most strong correlations with people who are already experiencing anxiety and depression, or again, for those that are using it excessively. So over that 3 hours per day, and specifically even further over that 5 or 8 hours a day, those are where we see the most damaging effects. So if they're using it consistently and overuse, then we see a lot. If they're using it less than 3 hours a day, we actually see no effects. And digital screen time, that's what you can see. My kid uses it too. I'm not a full ban on screen time. He's using it right now. But this is less than 3 hours. He's only used it for this half hour. And so we definitely see that the time and the amount that you're using it, and then also the way that you're using it for social media. So if you're engaging in social media and you're experiencing the bullying type of situations, or you're using it and looking at things that seem out of reach, right? So that unreal body image or things like that, that's where we see a lot more negative experiences. So it's kind of convoluted in the research. But again, it's overuse that seems to have the worst problems rather than just using it at all. Yeah.
We have Valerie Tilson online with her hand raised.
Hi,
ahead.
okay. Valerie Tilson for the record. I wanted to commend you for this program.
Thank you.
I have spinal issues, and I was talking to my pain doctor, and I said, are you seeing a lot of your patients come in with neck injuries for being hunched over like a football player, looking at their screen nonstop? And he goes, we're seeing a big increase, and there's going to be more medical issues with that. So that was one of my compliments on this program. The second is not the trafficking, but the picture blackmail. I'm trying to put it in adult terms for other people watching. Because I'm also a scam baiter that busts people trying to scam people. So I see all types of predators that either say, send me a picture, versus the senior scam of, you have a Microsoft issue, get a Google card for me. So this program would also prevent a lot of the children being exploited for taking pictures, as we see a lot of predator catchers. And it's amazing to see how they attract through common games, whether it's Roblox, Fortnite, etc. So I'm hoping more take on this, because we do need to set barriers of safety. So thank you for bringing this to the attention, because I don't have kids. That's why I was silent. But great questions by the panel, and thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, thank you.
Give a reminder for the record. There has I've seen this type of information coming up more frequently
Mhm.
in the recent times. More specifically, there's a big debate now whether schools should have this type of technology as well
Yeah.
in being in teaching through the technology as far as iPads and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing the same correlation as far as reading, math, science, all of those subjects. They're going down, and the use of technology in schools has risen. So therefore, I do feel that there is a correlation. It's not the only correlation, obviously, as you mentioned before, but it is really important that we should investigate. We should invest time as parents, as advocates, as community leaders to look at these things because maybe it's not affecting me personally. Maybe let's say for an example, but it's affecting
Well-
the next generation and the next and the next. And if we don't, let's say there is an issue with it and we need to stop it, it's better to stop it at the sooner the better. It's not about demonizing the technology. It's not about demonizing the use or any of that extent. It's like you said before as well, the how we use it, and how the intention of the use of the product. That's where I feel we need to be emphasizing more instead of demonizing like oh technology is horrible and bad and don't touch it. No, here it is. This is the good things about it. This is the bad things about it. Give and teach the younger generations about good and wrong.
Yeah.
I feel that overall, the different things and the whole scheme of life in general, we as the adults in the room, we try to keep our kids away from the bad things and try to shelter them, and it's in our nature to do that, but and also by doing that, we're not letting them experiment as far as if you do this or you see this or you listen to this is the consequence of it because there's a consequence for everything, good or bad. So therefore, I think we need to start looking into those things as well. How much we use this technology in schools, how we can cut back in school as well.
Save us some money too.
I understand, obviously, like it's important to have some kind of a technology structure for snow days or stuff like that. Because we do live in Nevada, we live in Reno, and it snows. Sometimes it does, and it doesn't. So we can use technology for those special occasions. But when it's practically the whole syllabus for the whole year to be on the tablets all year, I think that's where we have an issue. Thank you so much.
Corey Munson for the record. It sounded like most of the initiatives for Wait Until 8th were like grassroots, kind of family oriented.
Yes.
Get that buy-in at the ground level.
Yeah.
Do you all have any initiatives or for public policy changes or like incorporating
So not
schools or anything?
Not directly. So Wait Until 8th is a national organization, but it's pretty thin and pretty small. So in Reno Sparks, it's headed by two women, Brandy and Larissa, who are absolutely amazing. And they are doing all of the work here. So it's very grassroots here. And it's actually, I think it's a little bit bigger in Reno Sparks than even the national level. But there are other movements for policymaking. There are researchers in social psychology, which is what I do, who are involved in policy decisions and who are involved in making and putting those forth. And so there is movement at the national level to restructure policies. And then we're trying in the Reno Sparks area to start looking at these things, right? So evaluating, we were trying to put in public comment for the iReady decision. They didn't listen to us. But trying to make some movements in Reno Sparks as well, but that would be more grassroots.
Could you just give like an example of what a really low-hanging piece of policy that a state or a school district could implement is that?
I would say our first one that I would like to see implemented would be exactly that, is looking at the amount of technology we use in schools right now. So things like iReady, the iPads, things like that, they've just consistently been proven not to work as well as direct instruction from our educators. And they cost us a lot more than it would cost us to just pay our educators. And so I think based off of funding and what's good for our children, removing some of that, and not all of it. Again, we don't need to completely wipe out technology, just the ones that don't work. As a professor at UNR, I'm seeing a lot of college students coming in unprepared. 49% of our students can't pass our freshman math series at this moment. And I think that that's part of our education curriculum. And I think removing some of that technology would be our first low-hanging policy decision that we could start making.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Marie Rodriguez for the record, last time. Going back to what my colleague Ed was saying, I grew up watching Star Trek, where technology, moved mankind forward. And I do believe that having this access to information, I mean, I grew up using Encyclopedia Britannica, which had to be updated with these volumes every year. But now we have that same information at our fingertips. So it is such an amazing learning tool when used correctly. And the same thing happened with television way back when. It gave us access to the world, back in the 50s and 60s. So used correctly, it could be an amazing tool, and I would like to see that happen. But going back to what you're saying, I'm a UNR student at this age, and I sit at the back of my class because I just always have. And I see most of the students with their tablets open. No, most of them have their tablets open, and they're on that class page and getting that information, and following along with the reading. But yeah, there's the one over there playing a video game. There's the ones over there on social media, and they're not even paying attention to the lecture. So, but we've always had that back before technology. The ones passing notes or sleeping or whatever. But I don't want to get into this technology bashing because it is such a tremendous resource, but it's just a matter of using it appropriately.
And I think it's about teaching them. One thing I see with my students is we have Google and they don't know how to use it. They never Google anything first. I had to teach my TA the other day how to unstaple a paper because she couldn't think of and this is my TA, she was amazing. She's an amazing student. But that kind of critical thinking I have to convince them, I'm like, you need to use Google. And they're like, I'm not allowed to use Google. And so I think it's about teaching them that it's okay to use that access to information. I think another thing we see is we call it the paralysis of choice in psychology, where when you have too much access to information, it paralyzes you and you don't know how to filter it and decide it and that kind of thing. And so again, it's not about removing all technology. It's not about completely eliminating or not teaching it at all. It's about teaching how to use it, how to use these things I would have killed for the amount of technology they have now when I was a student to make it easier, and they're not using it. And so how do we teach them to use it properly rather than just to use it to increase test scores or things like that?
Anthony Dispensary for the record. Thanks for presenting. Related to this, I think very specifically, social media and technology are not necessarily all in the same group, right? It seems I think social media probably often enough does as much, if not more, harm than good. And so if you consider technology overall and then social media very specifically as a component of that, what your family does or does not use and get access to, I would submit that it's as equally harmful to a lot of the adults as it is children.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know that technology is supposed to move mankind forward. I'm not sure that social media necessarily always fits into that category of moving us forward, unfortunately. And in fact, specifically watching short videos researchers have shown it actually negatively impacts your memory retention and your cognitive ability. And so there's a lot of ongoing research. Obviously, it's relatively new because it's only a few years that we've really been exposed to this, but a lot of it is concerning and worrying. And so I do support using technology in the right, responsible way, but I would almost, especially for children, take social media out of that conversation because I think it generally does a lot more harm than good. So appreciate you coming and discussing with us, raising awareness in the community, and thanks for what you do.
I agree. Another policy decision I would make is I would ban YouTube if I could, because it's the worst part of my parenting. Constant struggle.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Have a good meeting.
All
For
right.
the record, member Lauren Kroll has joined the meeting.
Welcome, welcome. All righty, let's go ahead and move on. Are we prepared to do A4, council liaison report. All right, let's go ahead and do that.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Afternoon.
Okay,
yeah.
well, it's a joke.
For you
For
that
the ones
watched the meeting
who saw the meeting yesterday,
yesterday.
during public comment, there was an individual who stated Mr. Martinez as Mr. Rodriguez. So it's an inside joke between me and the mayor, vice mayor.
It's news to me that I switched my name. So,
Yeah.
but thank you. Good evening. Thanks for switching the schedule around to accommodate some of those shifting and making sure that I came up here. So I appreciate you all being here again and serving in the capacity that you have. I am wearing my I voted sticker today because obviously we're in voting time. So I just want to remind the board, if you have not voted yet, to participate in our democracy and make sure your voices are heard. You can find all the voting locations and times online. So just do a quick Google search and you could definitely find out more information on where you can do that. Yesterday, for those of you that didn't watch, we approved a moratorium on data centers until August 2027 till we vet sort of what topics we need to look at, what conditions we need to see when we're approving data centers in particular. I think there's a lot of different aspects going on to it. As I mentioned yesterday, some of it is within our purview and some of it is outside of our jurisdiction, but I just want to make sure we understand how we make the findings we need to when we're looking at these data centers in particular, and that if the good players are out there and they exist and they want to come to our city, that they are abiding by those things that we know that they can fulfill. And so just making sure that all of that is clear and on paper and that we all have the rules up front and that there isn't negotiating every single item and having to figure out what we want here within the city. And so for me, it was important that we put that message out as early and as quickly as possible to make sure our legislature understood that as well and that they know sort of where the city of Reno stands. So I really appreciate of all the public comment that came in yesterday to discuss that and make sure that that happened. Those are the only comments that I had today. I do have a quick presentation, which if I could ask staff to pull up, I'd appreciate. And then also, before I start this, I want to thank Member Dispensary for meeting with myself and some of the Public Works staff to go through how to make Reno a more walkable place, which is something that we have been talking about in particular. So today we're talking about traffic calming and safety, but in general, I think the impetus of the conversation was looking at how to make our streets safer for pedestrians, bicycle riders, people on mopeds or on scooters, or choosing alternate modes of transportation in our city. And so as we look at ways to ensure that people are getting from point A to point B as well in their vehicles and that they're doing it safely with those other folks that are using other modes of transportation. These are the things that our public works team looks at and the city looks at as we figure out where to put them. And I think obviously welcome to jump in at any point if you have any additional comments. You were obviously they're very engaged in this topic and have been for quite a while. So appreciative of there. So in terms of traffic engineering, most of it is dealing with how our streets operate with one another and the timing of the lights and making sure that the flow of traffic is headed in the right direction. Obviously, I'm not an engineer. For those of you that are and don't know, I'm an educator by trade, and so a lot of it is out of my area of expertise. But I'm happy to provide the information, and if you would like more detailed information, we can make sure some of our public works staff comes out to provide you with more of this information. We can also provide you the presentation afterwards and make sure that you have some of the links to the information and you have all of that readily available to you. And so as the administrators for our traffic safety program, the city looks at analyzing the responses to those service requests when it comes to intersection controls, curb use, safety, and lighting. For those of you that live in Donner Springs, one thing I've noticed in particular is that folks have been parking along the red curb on Sierra Madre right next to the apartments there, and folks drive really quickly, taking that street off from McCarran. And so I think that red curb is new. So or maybe it was just repainted recently. Yes, that's what it is. And then folks are still not obviously listening to the signal and paying attention there. I am a little worried with folks crossing the street. I've seen kids get in there and people are going like 35 on a street where it's a blind curb on the right. So it's very difficult to see anybody that's coming out of their vehicles. Yeah, so hopefully we are working with our PD staff to figure out solutions to that in particular. But if there are other areas in your neighborhoods that you see, I'm happy to help. Or if you want to put in a request through Reno Direct, you're always able to provide your comments and some of that there. So there are some responsibilities, like I mentioned, that the city does have in terms of traffic signal timing, making sure that the flow of traffic makes sense from one space to another, and that it isn't causing bottlenecks during any part of our traffic. And so the other part that we talked about in our conversation, Mr. Spaceri, was traffic calming and looking at measures to ensure that folks are going the safe speed, especially within our neighborhoods, where sometimes if the main roads or the artillery roads get backed up or there's construction, folks will start taking alternative routes and forget sometimes that they're in our neighborhoods and that we need to be a little bit safer and more aware of people that live in the areas that we're traversing through there. So traffic calming, from what we have from the Department of Transportation, you can read it for yourself, but basically is ensuring that there's safe and comfortable environments for people that are walking or on their bikes. So this could include speed tables, traffic circles, speed feedback signs. Funny enough, which is something that I learned recently, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but traffic stop signs are not considered countermeasure for speed mitigation. So when traffic engineers or public works staff is looking at ways to mitigate traffic or speed mitigation efforts, a stop sign isn't something that's necessarily able to be used based on legal federal standards and laws that the city has to abide by in order to justify where these stop signs in particular are placed. But going back to the slide, I just wanted to point out the link on here. I don't know if Jen, do you have a mic out over there? If you want to add anything at this point, you're welcome to hop in.
Jennifer Alvarez, Council Liaison for the record. I don't necessarily have any additional information, but if you do have any questions or as Vice Mayor Martinez said, we can share this PowerPoint with you so you'll be able to access the links. And then if you have any questions at all, you can always contact me as well.
Yeah.
Specifically around traffic calming, I learned in that meeting, this is Anthony Dispensary for the record, sorry, that speed tables, like those tables that you put in, if you're, that is actually a public input process whereby, and I don't understand, they weren't very clear about the exact specifics on this, but they said 2/3 of the residents on a street, if they sign a petition to add a speed table, then the city would implement them. The requests, they say, don't happen very often. They're very underutilized. But if the majority of the residents on a street think that there is a speed issue and they sign on, it'd be interesting to know exactly like what the parameters are, because like, does that mean the immediate people that live just on one segment of that street? Is it like adjacent people? Like, because they kind of said 2/3, but they didn't really like, is that 2/3 of every single person and that lives in every single house on that block? Like, what are the it would be interesting to know like what the more minute details of that is, so that we could potentially utilize that pathway. But they basically were saying there is a public access request process for that, whereby you could get speed tables, and obviously different people feel differently about speed tables, speed bumps, things like that. But I learned that part in the meeting for sure, and I wanted to share that.
Yeah, from my recollection, there was a petition process that you can go through to submit the signatures and ask for the city to consider that. And as you mentioned, there aren't many requests that have come up recently. So if that's something you all want to explore, again, we can make sure that we get some staff out here or maybe a presentation like the one that we had that day to provide an overview of what that looks like. The other,
Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is Sarah Horseman for the record. If we were to submit something to Reno Connect, is there an average response time that we can expect to get, like turnaround essentially? Like if it's like, no, we can't, this is not something we can work on, or here are next steps.
For this in particular, for street speed mitigation or anything like that, traffic calming measures, I think it takes, you will know that they have your request in right away, and then they assign it to staff, and you sort of get updates as the process moves along. But I'll let Jen jump in there.
And that is correct. Jennifer Alvarez, Council Liaison for the record. Yes, so typically when you submit a request, it does go through a process. They complete a traffic study. Right away, you'll know which traffic engineers is assigned to the task, and they're very communicative. So if you have questions, they address them. But I would say within the first week or two, typically you'll see where it's headed and how fast it's going to progress.
The only time I've seen it take longer is when they have to do like a speed study and they put the strips out and they have to wait until that process sort of plays out. But I was kept aware throughout the process of where they were. Yeah, especially if you have an account on Reno Direct and you sort of keep track on that, you get more updates that way instead of just calling in anonymously and leaving a voicemail.
Anthony Dispensary. I've actually generally been impressed by the responsiveness and the response times. Obviously, I haven't been as impressed by the results always, but and that's what we've been kind of working on addressing. And I'm actually going to be, I think he'll have some really encouraging news on that front. So we'll, but the response time, in my view, has been more than adequate. I think they do a good job, and they have been responding quite well.
Yeah, I would say so. From my own experience too, they're pretty smooth and on top of everything that's going on there. Another consideration when we're talking about traffic calming mitigation efforts are primary emergency vehicle routes. So ensuring that our firefighters, REMSA, folks that have those big vehicles to make sure that we're getting emergency services provided to our community, have access and are able to get to wherever the emergency is occurring. That's part of, the pushback that we get sometimes from some of the folks that are on these rigs about putting speed bumps, for example, is just a little bit harder to get around and make sure you have the response time that we need to respond to the emergencies. And so if you're interested in looking at where those routes are in particular, you can go to this link, which again will be shared for you, so you don't have to write it all down, but you'll have access to that and you can see where those are located. This is our policy on traffic calming devices and some of the specifics about how the city looks at where these calming devices are placed. So again, the petition that Member Dispensary talked about is mentioned in there as well. And then the data will be gathered and a determination will be provided for you. And some of the criteria that they look at for approving these or not are some of these that are posted on here. The one I feel like I understood, but if I could get your help, Mr. Dispensary, to explain the minimum 85th percentile speeds again. I don't know if you captured that.
What I understood to be the case was that they don't really, and I sort of take a little bit of issue with this, they don't really look at the outliers. They don't want to look at the guy that's doing 100 on a 30-mile-an-hour street. They're looking at the average speeds and whether, at the 85th percentile, they said they have some discretion to go down to as low as the 50th percentile in speeds if there are other mitigating circumstances like being a pedestrian area, like having schools or other things involved. And so they try to keep the speed thresholds, reasonable within certain percentage parameters. That's kind of what I understood, but they do have discretion in that. And I think one of the things I was asking them to do very specifically on South Center was, South Center, I think is 35 miles an hour and it's a single lane, it's 2 lanes, same direction. And so it's kind of like a racetrack. in one direction. And one of the things I was asking was like if they could consider making that 25 instead of 35. I know they did some speed studies and they were saying that at an 85th percentile, it wasn't, wildly in excess of the posted rate as some criteria for whether or not they could do something about it. But then with this subsequent meeting, I was more encouraged by the fact that they were talking about they had some discretion in some of that. And specifically in our downtown core, when we're trying to make this neighborhood more walkable, more friendly, better, it's better for commercial, enterprises that need foot traffic. It's healthier for people. There's all these good reasons why we should encourage walkability, specifically in targeted areas that are most appropriate for it, right? And so the encouraging part of the 85th percentile to me was that they had discretion in it, and it was sort of a marker, but it wasn't a hard and fast rule. At least that's how I understood it.
Yeah, and it did seem like there was some leeway for folks to look into this. Yeah.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. This whole screen makes me think of Rio Poco. Between where people come out over on Reggie out of the school area, heading towards South McCarran. The speed limit in Donner Springs is 25. And people take that area of Rio Poco right along the little river there, along that ditch. They're routinely going 40 and over on their way to South McCarran. And even though they have that one crosswalk right there where Sierra Madre drops into Rio Poco, I keep thinking that we need at least a flashing pedestrian light or something there because, people don't slow down unless there's actually somebody in the crosswalk, and sometimes they have to, kind of hit their brakes. But that, to me, kind of meets that criteria because the posted speed limit is 30 or less, and they are constantly going well over the speed limit, this 85th percentile. They're going over that all the time up and down that road. So this looks like, to me, like would be the perfect place where we could get 2/3 of the population to sign a petition to put something in there. Is that what it's talking about?
It is.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly it. I think one of the measures that were put in place there was just the sign that tells you how fast you're going, but it's only when you're going away from McCarran, not towards McCarran on that side. Yeah, but that would be a great example of where this, and even on the operational criteria, from what I see, it meets those standards as well.
Anthony Dispensary, to this point exactly, I appreciate your thinking about areas that I don't regularly interact with. Obviously, as one of the members in Ward 3, I generally interact in my area, and Ward 3 is a very big place, and I have no interaction with things that in your neighborhood or others. And so I think all of us collectively thinking about how to, how this engages with, reality and how we're, trying to protect people is a good thing. So thank you for,
I think member Tilson has something.
Hi, thank you. Valerie Tilson for the record. Since we're on the dead man's curve topic of Rio Poco, that is going to be one of the outlets for the Talus development. So that's in the back of my mind going, okay, we don't know yet as the development inches its way our direction, being in Donner Springs, that my envision is that there'll be hopefully some planning of a roundabout, since every turn in Reno has a stop sign next to a dead man's turn. So for those like Councilmember Rodriguez was saying, yeah, everyone's going like 40 miles an hour, the heck with you. I'm going to go to the stop sign first and wait. So I'm hoping that we can do some more proactive measures for safety concerns, because I know that we're not the only neighborhood that is having the eruption of subdevelopments, and in neighborhoods that already have been developed, and the amount of traffic that's going to be put on the streets. So I'm hoping eventually that if this could be the pillar example of, as the development is starting to spread, as it develops, to think proactively. Well, okay, we can see that each village as they're expanding. Okay, so it might be year 3 before they build the roundabout at the end of their development to then hit Rio Poco. So maybe that's something that we could discuss with the planning commission and RTC, City of Reno, to do more proactive roundabouts and other calming devices.
Okay, yeah, that's a great point. I think with Talus Valley or Talus, part of the handbook has upgrades to infrastructure on Rio Poco all the way up to McCarran. But I'm happy to show you those and show you what the plans look like. I don't think it calls for a roundabout from memory, but I'm happy to continue the conversation offline with you and show you sort of what the plan is there at Rio Poco.
Okay, thank you very much, Council. Valerie Tilson for the record, thank you very much. And I'll send you an email and harass you that way. Thank you.
It's welcome. Thank you. Let's see. That's not, there we go. Thank you. More on the policy. What it takes to look at it, and then, sorry, I skipped one ahead, but if you have other things you wanted to submit, Reno Direct information is on the last slide. My bad, I clicked it way too many times. There we go. So there is the petition process. There's also, if you want to look at things through Reno Direct, you're able to submit a request on there. But I don't have the slide that Khalil showed us, but to talk about the 2 projects that were there, RTC through their neighborhood network connectivity plan, and then there was another, oh man, I'm gonna miss the name. But there's 2 projects basically that RTC is working on to increase like bike paths and make sure there's bulb outs on specific streets over near Center Street. And is it Pueblo? No.
It's really Moran all the way throughout. It's really Moran, the sort of the full length of it from like Virginia, I think all the way past Wells and into the next neighborhood, to almost to the elementary school, I think.
Libby Booth.
What's that?
Libby Booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Levy Booth. There was also the Bulbots that were painted on by an artist there too. And so I think with those 2 projects, you'll see more upgrades in terms of visibility for pedestrians, more room at the intersections to allow for folks that are driving to be able to see the people that are at the crosswalk ready to cross the street. And then as a city and in conjunction with the school district, we worked really hard to place the flashing beacons all around the schools in our areas in our different wards to ensure that our students are safe as they get dropped off or picked up or walk home from school, and ensuring that they get home safely. So that's the presentation that I had and some of the information. In addition, happy to answer any other questions.
Anthony Dispenseri again. I know that, and maybe I'm preempting you on this, but they're gonna come to our NAB and present at an upcoming meeting, hopefully July, but we're not really sure. It's currently scheduled for August for them to come and present more comprehensively exactly what that plan is going to look like. And I think that's going to have some really positive impact based on the feedback we had seen on some of the issues that we've in that specific localized area that I think hopefully people will find much, bit safer and more. And they also seemed like they were open to some of the feedback that I had during the presentation around, like where the crosswalk is on the other side of the street, or, conducting certain things in it, like making it a little bit more pedestrian friendly than it currently is, even with the sort of the configurations they're considering. So I'm hopeful that there will be a bit of an interactive process with that, and they'll take more feedback as we do that. But it was encouraging that they'll be back here presenting to us sort of the overarching plan. Sorry if I stole the thunder, but
no, you're fine. That's the information I have as well, that we have them tentatively scheduled for August. We're seeing if they can come earlier in July, but we will have RTC out in the coming months.
And I had just a couple of tangential points around that, if I may. First off, the view from that boardroom is incredible. I don't know if you guys have ever been up there, but like it's on the 15th floor of this building, and I think it might be the best view in Reno. It looks out south, and it's like, I don't know, incredible. So if you've ever been up there, you just have a reason to go up there. I don't know. We can do a visitor's tour or something. That was, yeah, seriously, that was worth the price of admission alone. That was incredible. Appreciate Councilmember Martinez or Vice Mayor Martinez coordinating that, getting all the folks in the room and sort of, having them address some of the concerns that I know, some of us had discussed in the past. I do feel like there's good positive momentum on that matter. And then the one thing I did notice is that all of the standards that they apply to traffic and traffic calming and all this stuff were all very vehicle focused. There really is no pedestrian standard that's really applied in some of these things, which I think was kind of interesting to me. Like a walkability score or, like things like that. They don't really apply. I don't know why. Like it feels like it's so oriented toward like being so car focused, and I understand emergency response and certain things like that, but there is it felt like there was almost no accounting for what the pedestrian experience was like. And it's almost like, they're definitely taking the feedback into consideration, but that wasn't like, if you're talking about 85th percentile of how fast the cars are going, you're not like, well, how does the pedestrian feel when they're walking down the street? Do they feel like they're going to die? I mean, like those are things that, just walkability oriented metrics, it would make sense to me to sort of incorporate some of those into an analysis when you're trying to figure out what the best configuration for some of these streets is. And that was a takeaway to me. But otherwise, like I said, I appreciate them, and I'm excited for them to come and share more of their vision, and hopefully they'll take the feedback that we have as we discuss it further.
Marvie Rodriguez for the record. I'm glad you mentioned that, because when they come, one of the things that I find is often lacking when talking about streets isn't just the pedestrians, but it's the other kind of vehicles, the motorcycles, the bicycles, and the commercial vehicles. They do maybe talk about the emergency response route, but those aren't the only large vehicles we have going up and down the streets. We just recently had a pedestrian vehicle accident involving a commercial vehicle on Wells Avenue. But we do have the delivery trucks that need to get around the city. And very often in the NAB meetings, when we talk about people wanting to come in and build things, or they're talking about, for example, expanding Pembroke or something, we need to remember that we need to have routes that are truck routes. And is this going to impact, commercial traffic? Or are we going to have, the signs up that indicate that it's not a truck route? And how is it going to affect, the wear and tear on our roads? So I think that's something that often gets overlooked as well.
Anthony Dispensary, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I've also raised similar concerns about Wells Avenue in particular. It's almost the converse of what I've been mentioning on some of the other areas, where there are so many consecutive pedestrian crossings that there's actually driver fatigue, and people sort of start ignoring them because they're one after the other, and a lot of them aren't lighted. And so if we actually removed a few of them and we had the remaining ones that were lighted, I think that would actually do the area good service. And so these are the kinds of feedback that I share with them, and hopefully they will continue to engage. I mean, I don't think that Wells Avenue very specifically was part of that plan, because they're talking about like the bike route and sort of that particular avenue, and that's sort of not in that same conversation, just like the South Center part that I was talking about wasn't either. They said when they close events, for Virginia, for example, they're concerned about the knock-on effect to traffic in other areas, and making sure that the traffic moved appropriately. But I still, go back to, like, if you're going to have a main access to the Midtown core area, at a minimum, we should have lighted crosswalks. And I think we should consider, when traffic moves just in one direction, people tend to drive faster than if there's one lane in opposite directions. And so I'm hopeful that they take those. I don't know I honestly don't know if you know this, if there's a process or a mechanism for amending a speed limit. But I would love to see if that was possible specifically in that stretch. And ultimately, if it's not, at least having a lighted crosswalk to get, because it's the main pedestrian corridor. If they can do at least that part, I think that would be a significant upgrade.
Jorgen Hohen for the record. One last comment. Yeah, Anthony, if I can walk to a place, my tab will be higher, and I do that because I can walk back home. And so I'd like to see a study between correlation between sales tax and walkability, right on Wells. Yeah, anyways, fantastic job that we're looking at it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been great. I think in that conversation that we had, one of the examples, I know it's not Center Street, but they talked about Forest and the plans there and some of the challenges that the staff anticipates coming up. But it's another street where it's one way, two lanes headed south on Forest between a neighborhood. And so there are some similar issues in the area, which staff is looking at mitigating in different aspects, whether it's making it one lane or removing parking and shifting pedestrians to one side and the traffic to the other. So there's a bunch of different studies still that have to come up until they try out what's going to work best. But staff is actively looking at it within the city, and so is RTC. I know it's a big part of what we are going to continue to plan for our city.
Sorry, Anthony Esposito, one more comment. It was unclear to me what RTC I thought is a county organization. And it was unclear to me which part of it is like city and which part of it is county and where they draw that distinction. I think the specific plans around the access for the bike routes and the other stuff they're planning is probably RTC because maybe that's the larger county plan. But it's still kind of unclear to me when you talk about speed limits and traffic calming and other things, what the segmentation is between city and county.
Yeah, and I think it sort of depends on who owns what road, and where those measures are in place. But I think in terms of like the signals and some of that stuff, the city of Reno, within the limits, our city limits, is responsible for implementing some of that. And I think we even have interlocal agreements either with the county or Sparks to also provide oversight on signals and controls on that as well. But yeah, like if you travel along Veterans, that crosses, I think, 3 different jurisdictions. Part of it is in Reno, and then it's county, and then it's Reno, then it's Sparks. And so similar with Kitski, where that piece of it that doesn't have sidewalk, which I'm still working on, between Plum and Vassar is NDOT. And the rest of it was sort of conditioned to add sidewalk for pedestrians on those spaces. And so I understand your struggles because I have to, every time I look at a street, it's basically the same, figuring out whose jurisdiction it is and where we go through it. But I appreciate you bringing that up. Tomorrow, I think on our agenda is adoption of the 18-month study to bring more live entertainment to the city in Midtown, 4th Street, and downtown to allow operators, to be able to more easily open up their businesses for the next 18 months and seeing if that's successful and moving it from hopefully a land use item instead of business licensure thing.
This is Sarah Horseman for the record. I just wanted to comment thank you, Anthony, for working on this. But also I wanted to thank the City Council for listening to the constituents and passing the moratorium on data centers. I think the community hasn't always been voted for and listened to, so I was really glad that there was a majority vote on that. The other thing that I want to bring up, just because I know the City Council is the Redevelopment Agency Board, and the Advisory Board met yesterday as well, I believe, to discuss the application for the Eddy to take over the Believe Plaza. I know there's probably going to be differing opinions about that. I'm personally opposed to that. But one thing I want just the redevelopment agency to think about is there's very limited communal spaces anymore for people who have less resources. And that's a place that means a lot to a lot of people. I know that sometimes we as a community like pick and choose who deserves to have community. And I think we should not overlook those who have less resources. So that's something that I want the community to consider. I know that the redevelopment agency board will think about that, and that there was some vote to look into it further. But I just wanted to express that because there's very limited spaces for people, like even on Tuesday nights right now, right outside on the Believe Plaza, mutual aid is being delivered to people who don't have a lot of resources. And so if there's not place for community and for art and for sharing, then I think that we miss the purpose of living in a city together, and that everybody deserves to, and I'm not just preaching at you, I'm talking to everybody else, but everybody deserves community. And I don't think we should pick and choose who does, just because it might make us uncomfortable to see people with less resources gathered together. So I just wanted to express that because I know you guys have been very, very busy, and there's been a lot of things on the docket. But I know I speak for a lot of people who have given public comment about data centers, who care about the land and care about the people, also feel very strongly about this. So I just wanted to express that a part of the community feels. And I know, just like Anthony said, I live in Midtown, part of Ward 3, so I'm more connected to the downtown piece, but I know it's the hub for a lot of us, and that it's something that we all have different feelings about. So I just wanted to say that. And thank you.
I'm not doing for the records. So we do have a STEM school farewell on tonight at 8 p.m. And then we have a Vaughan Middle School, which is part of Ward 3 tomorrow, to walk-in tour, farewell tour for old Vaughan Middle School. It's at tomorrow, 3 to 5 p.m. If you're not working, go ahead down to Vaughan Middle School. And then another event is Pine Mill School, a farewell tours, which is on next Monday, June 8th, 3 to 5 p.m. If you're not working, head down to Pine Mill School. I will be here on Vaughan Mill School and Pine Mill School. And also they're like, so, and in the school board meeting, they're talking about agenda. We put a plan for rebuild Worcester High School, and the agenda got canceled. I try to wait for when it's going to have an agenda. We'll see what we have a couple of funny projections this Thursday, but that's going to happen. So, you do know any updates? What's going on with the capital project
Yeah, it was rescheduled for the 11th,
for 11?
which is next Thursday, I believe.
Next
Or
Thursday.
the Thursday after next.
Okay. Thank you.
What time?
On 11th. I believe we meet at 4. Pop quiz time. Give me a sec. Yeah, the 4 p.m. at the Washoe County offices on 9th, 425 East 9th Street in the boardroom.
Okay,
We'll
thank
be
you.
discussing, the 10-year CIP plan and then the plan for Worcester High School as well. So I'm happy to talk to any one of you all, which is the only high school in Ward 3 that we, helped maneuver. I'll just say that on the record.
Anthony
Yes.
Dispensary, one question. You mentioned the moratorium on data centers. Does that apply to existing projects that are going through the construction phase as well? Do you happen to know?
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
It's any new applications.
Okay.
Yeah, so the ones that have been approved will be allowed to continue.
So Keystone, for example, continues.
Yes,
Got it.
correct.
This is Ed Park board member. First of all, I want to second what Cheryl was talking about, the City Plaza, providing a space for the public. I would also add that it's been a place for rallies, protests, a lot of good social causes, the vast majority of them being very peaceful and a plus for this community. I would like to add on the data center discussion, I'd be very curious, I would propose for a future agenda item to have the city of Reno, a representative, come here and talk about the data centers and the moratorium and what as like you were mentioning, Vice Mayor Martinez earlier, that there are certain specific limitations the city of Reno has, and I'd be curious of what those limitations are and what the city of Reno can do and cannot do as far as limiting the data centers, their usage of energy, and the mitigation of the noise complaints and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure we can get some more questions answered. I think part of the public input process that we asked staff to go through, possibly that could be built in to include a NAB presentation during one of that stage, but I'll reach out to staff and see if there's a possibility to get, I'm assuming, Mrs. Knox to give the presentation because she's been sort of leading that conversation on the staff side for it. And then just to maybe give a few examples, like the tax abatements aren't something that we are in charge of within the city. So when you talk about the tax revenue that is produced, that is affected by any state approved tax abatements. We don't control water, purveying water, so Tumwa provides the will serve letters if they have enough water. And then the same thing with the electrical grid and approving the needs there. That's outside of our jurisdiction, and with NV Energy and the Public Utilities Commission. So those are just 3 of the examples. There are many more, but I'm sure that we can make sure you get that information. Yeah.
Can I ask one more thing related to it as well? Anthony Dispensary. I'm curious, obviously a lot of this, I think the electricity use was, if you look at the numbers, like most of the data centers proposed don't use that much more water than your average house, whatnot, but the electricity use is massive. I don't know if you have any idea about, I guess it's a totally different jurisdiction. I don't know anything about NV Energy, what they can charge specific customers, or if they can put policies in place to charge people that are using energy excessively like they would be. But I guess more importantly, just in a broad sense, I know Reno is the fastest warming city in the country. And I'm curious, data centers, like for example, that Keystone's facility, from what I understand, is going to be vented by fans, not water, but they're going to be cooling them using fans, meaning that the heat will be released into the middle of the city in the atmosphere. I'm curious what specific areas of focus the city might have on trying to make us maybe not the fastest warming city in the country, and trying to take us in a positive direction. If you have any idea, if there's any initiatives like that, because it's a big area of concern of mine.
Yeah, no, and I definitely understand that. I think when I looked at those maps that showed the studies that DRI had conducted, the areas specifically around the airport were very red because there's a lot of asphalt, in the area, and there aren't a lot of trees. And so Ward 3 in particular is pretty hot. I think Central Sparks and then the North Valleys were some of the more red areas that I noticed. And so I think outside of, data centers, heat mitigation is a larger topic that we need to look at and make sure that, we're planting trees, or that we're looking at other ways to offset those effects. Because I think yes, those users play a role, but there's also other things I think that we need to look at to make sure that we're addressing it from different angles, But I do agree that what they will produce or can produce is something that we need to look at as well. And whether it's co-location or using effluent or addressing different things, I think this conversations and the direction that staff will do and what the regional planning agency is doing with their surveys and stuff will help get us more information. Yeah, to bring that out.
We have member Kroll online.
Hi, Lauren Kroll for the record. I kind of just wanted to second Anthony's question. I have some serious concerns about the data center that's using fans to cool the data center. I guess it's awesome. It's not using the limited water resources we have in the area, but I have only heard extreme anger about the fact that we're going to pump hot air into close to downtown in our already very hot city, fastest warming in the country. I've heard city council members talk about us being one of the fastest heating city in the country, and then also approve that data center. And so I'm curious, I guess, are there any plans to have that company then pay for other cooling mitigations within Reno and like investing in native plants and things like that? Or is that still up to the city? That's going to cost us money, and we're making money for a company that's pumping hot air into Reno. So I'm kind of holding your feet to the fire just a little bit because you're a council member. So thank you for hearing us. But that data center feels very extreme to me. And I really hope there's something we can do to offset the cost that um, we'll pay to try to make Reno more livable.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately at this point, there isn't anything retroactively that we can do specifically for the one on Keystone. But I think that's why I'm happy that at least we moved forward with the moratorium and we can explore those with anything in the future. Yeah, unfortunately, the ones that got approved over this last year did so. But I think at least three of us on the body have been pretty consistent about wanting to get better policy in place for the data centers. And there are different processes with the CUP. I don't think the Keystone one came up to the city council level because it was approved through the planning commission. And then the other thing that may have affected it, and I don't have any data to back this up, so I'll just say with a grain of salt, is that the council approved an increase to the land appeals fee the past fiscal year. And so I have a theory that that possibly affected folks being willing to spend $1,200 to appeal that CUP that was approved through the planning commission because it was a heavy financial burden. We did cut that for this next fiscal year, but obviously what's done is done in this last year. So I appreciate you holding my feet to the fire. I think I should be held accountable. That's why I'm here. So thank you for asking the questions, and you're definitely being heard.
Veronica Sharma for the record. I believe it was December of 2024. I was in this exact room, and there were a couple items in the Planning Commission agenda, including the Keystone Data Center that was next in line. And the first agenda was myself for the data center that's going up in the North Valleys, much bigger in size. And I think that we were the first data center project, technically, since the code had added language in there. Before the added language, data centers were just classified under warehouse use. And if you have an industrial zone parcel, warehouse is permitted by right. So you don't have to come in front of a discretionary board. So that's what used to happen. Moving forward, I think January of 2024 is when we had that added language that was passed through a city ordinance that basically, hey, because it's a 24-hour use, all data centers, we're introducing a new use category, it would have to come in front of the Planning Commission. And at that point, the findings that you would have to show in order to, have this project approved was the same as any other warehouse coming in. You have your, I think, 5 generic findings that we have in the Reno code. And it brings back a lot of memory. Since then, there have been a lot of conversations with the moratorium. In effect, I do have some good friends in the commission as well as council. So I'm glad to see that has happened. Just more conversations and awareness of land use and good placement of, we can't escape data centers with how we're progressing in the society, but just placing them in a more mindful location and also coming back to other agencies, TUMWA and NV Energy, is just that thin line between the legalities of it and who's holding who accountable. Because if we're talking about power, that immediately goes back to NV Energy, and how they decide what they want to do with power is totally up to them. Same with TUMWA. It's totally up to them how they want to issue the will serve or not. And I think that's when it became a regional conversation versus just coming to Planning Commission. So yeah, just wanted to throw that because it brings back a lot of memories. So
Thanks for the heads up. There was a day last month where the state legislature, 2 of their interim joint committees met to discuss data centers as well. So I would assume that there's going to be something in the next legislative cycle as well. that will come about regarding data centers. Anything else?
Gabriel Maya for the record. I just wanted to see if there's been any update as far as the Pembroke sporting complex for the soccer fields and stuff like that. The reason why, I believe this weekend they're having like some kind of a ribbon cutting for the fields here at the J Resorts for the fields for downtown, and you already see that the first thing that pops up is there's a certain league involved with the J Resort, which is fine. You know, how that's distributed. That's however J Resort wants to deal with that. That's fine. But that's where my conflict comes in, where we need to have more public fields, so where public can come in and use fields for the public, not for not or not come in and we have to pay for a specific group to give us the glorious opportunity to use the fields for our leisure. So is there any updates or anything that we should know about the fields moving forward?
Yeah, so tomorrow, the Truckee River Flood Management Authority is hosting a community outreach meeting to provide their update that includes a 30% design of the flat fields over on Mill and McCarran. And so that will at least give us a basic understanding of where the fields will be, where the trails are going to remain along that system, and then where the parking is. And then in terms of usage, right now the flood management owns the property, but from my understanding, the goal is to hand it over to one of the jurisdictions after the fields are taken over. And so at that point, it would sort of be up to whatever policy that jurisdiction has in place that sort of dictates where the partnership lies. But I hear what you're saying, and making sure that what is a current public good remains a public good, and that it isn't privatized or held away from the public. And so the other news that will impact jurisdiction lines is that the three jurisdictions, Washoe County, City of Reno, and City of Sparks, are currently engaged in looking at a feasibility study about a parks district. And then that would create basically a whole nother entity that would take over everything that has to do with parks, recreation, and open space. And then maybe that entity would take control over the flat fields that we're talking about. And so I think continue to stay engaged in that process and make sure that we are voicing those concerns, and that they stay at the top of mind is important. But that's sort of where we're at now. Across the street on Pembroke, we're still working with staff and other members to see if there's appetite to build more flat fields over on Pembroke, near Pembroke and Veterans, kind of where the Rosewood golf course used to be at, where the clubhouse used to be across the street. And so that's another area that we're looking at potentially adding more flat fields. That's still in the very initial stages. But at least for the ones on Mill McCarran, with the design is going to be at 30% and presented to the public tomorrow, and then approved or talked about at the next Flood Management Authority meeting, which is next Friday, the 12th, I believe. Yes, the 12th. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
Valerie is also online with her hand raised. Go ahead, Valerie.
Valerie Tilson for the record. I remember during the ARPA funds talking of where to spend, and council member Dewar was saying, yeah, we have, there's space up to 10 flat fields, but each field costs $1 million. Now that was post-COVID funds for using. They said, well, we only can do one right now. And because of the money, we only have X amount of $2 million that we're allowed, and we want to spread it among other projects for the city. And so I was wondering, is that price range still around the same number? And would it still be because I know there was talk about a second and third field by the public comments. Because that time there was also talk about the soccer out in North Valleys that has been, I don't think it's developed or been pursued. Because I haven't seen it on the city of Reno in a while. So so question number one, is that still around the same price of $1 million per field? And we're waiting to see how much that one field will end up costing and whether we can fund with our limited budget to do more than just one field.
I believe those are the same numbers. I haven't heard any updated numbers since then, but I think the issue was that, and I'm going to get this wrong, but it was either a detention or a retention basin in that area, and so the water cannot be offset from that basin to any other part of the neighboring parcels. And so the challenge was more with the engineering and figuring out what it would cost, what it would take to grade and make sure that that wasn't affected with this project. So I think that's part of the reason why, like, there was going to be no vertical structures built on the site. And everything that was being looked at was a parking garage or parking spaces and fields just to play. So, but in terms of the number, I haven't heard any updated one, so I'm assuming it's about the same.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Thank you, Vice Mayor Martinez. All righty, so I guess we kind of blurred the line between the update report and then agenda item D. But again, is there any board or commission, committee member reports, announcements, or discussion of a future agenda items at this time from the board?
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Just a few things. I was also going to mention the early voting continues through Friday, and then next week on Tuesday the 9th is our primary. So just if you haven't already gotten out to vote. I think a lot of us have probably already took advantage of the early voting. And I just want to remind everyone that this Saturday between 10 and 6 out in Sparks is the second annual Sierra Arts Literary Communities Book Festival. It's over at the depot at Victoria Square, and there's going to be a lot of local authors out there with their books. There's going to be activities for kids. It's just a family event. And I did invite Reno City Council to attend, Sparks City Council to attend, and our county commissioners to attend. So maybe we'll get to talk to some of our local leaders at that event. Also, this Friday is the last day of school for Washoe County Schools. So,
No, it's Monday.
oh, okay. Well, that's the last day of classes for my kids. But just with school ending, we need to be on the lookout because there's going to be more kids out and about this summer, hopefully off their phones and out doing kids things. So just a reminder that there's going to be more kids out there playing, and keep our eyes open for them. And I think our rodeo is this month, the 18th through the 27th. So just summer starting. Summer starts on Father's Day this month. And with all that, we're going to have all the outdoor activities. So just everybody have a great summer.
Anthony Dispensary. I know we were talking about aggregating a list of future agenda items, and I don't know if you had an update on where we are with that.
I do have an update. So we talked today about RTC coming in either July or August. There's also been some interest in the past about having development services come out. So we are planning to have development services come out in the early fall. We've had some requests for different updates from parks or downtown safety. So really good resources for those are our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. They meet on the third Tuesday of each month. I believe Vice Mayor is the council liaison on that board as well. And then Ward 1 usually sees some downtown issues as well. Some other requests we've had some requests for RPD and RFD. We are working on those, but I don't have any current updates. Several members of the board have talked about having businesses and local community groups coming out. I just haven't received any specific requests of who you'd like to see. So if you do have someone that you would like to come and present to the NAB and talk, just reach out to me and let me know. That's the aggregated list we have, but I'm happy to add some other stuff if you have other requests tonight. Go ahead, Valerie.
Okay, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. So Valerie Chilson for the record. I want to let everyone know that I'm also now part of the Access Advisory Board. So once I'm done with this physical torture, you'll see me more in person. But as soon as we meet in August, I'll be able to give you updates of what their feedback is and what they're working on, and see if correlating together on some projects would be advantageous to our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Go ahead, Lauren.
Thanks. I just wanted, or sorry, Lauren Kroll for the record. I just wanted to share that the Rosewood Nature Study Area is having its grand reopening this Friday, June 5th from 12:30 to 3:30, and the public can get tours. I think there's like a raffle and some other little events. So please come out and check out Rosewood. It looks really nice and is very cleaned up. So I hope the public can come enjoy it.
Chair Amaya for the record. As stated before, Stead Middle School will be shutting down their old facility tonight. If you have a chance to swing by and say goodbye to the building, go ahead. And also for tomorrow, Vaughn Middle School will be shutting down their old building between 3 to 5. You have the opportunity to go by and assign the wall. They'll be being tear down, and I believe they said they're gonna give a tour of the new building. I'm not super sure about that, but something I do want to bring up is I think overall there should be a little bit more of a public emphasis on the school boards and in the school board meetings. There are a lot of changes. There's a lot of things going on. And unfortunately, there isn't much participation from the public unless it is a really big topic. But overall, the budget that they're planning to pass, there's a couple of things that I'm not really particularly fond of. But again, I think we just need to, as an extent, an invitation to the board and to the public overall. If there's anything you can do to be a little bit more participative of the school board meetings and put in your input. You can also send in your input the same way we do it for the NAB Ward 3 meetings and stuff like that. So, yeah, so that's all I have to say on the matter. Anybody else has any announcements or?
Yes. Oh, not the one for the record. They're like in the naming community. Do tonight. If you have not chance to put your name on a new MS school at Pine campus, like for example, Devin Reese Elementary School, you want to put whatever name to be honored in Reno or Sparks or local in Washington County. Go ahead, hit the link for new MS School Pine campus. You can name a school or name a location. And then second of why I'm worried about Worcester High School because the Worcester community want to answer to know what's going on with Worcester High School because they're promised to have a rebuild new Worcester High School, but the problem could be broken, could get modernized, or could be closed for Worcester High School because due to low enrollments. So we want some answer in the school board meeting and also the capital funding protection plans as soon possible. So whether or not Worcester could rebuild or modernize, such like new Debbie Smith school, no, Debbie Smith's TTE Academy, or close to Worcester High School. So we want to make sure the school district should have a open town hall meeting for the publics, not cross funding. And I want to make sure to have a town hall open community meeting in public at Worcester High School to talk about projects, whether or not Worcester should close or rebuild Worcester High School, period.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else? Do we have any closing public comment?
I do not. Just a reminder on that development project tonight. It's going to the Planning Commission on Thursday. So if you want to get feedback in, get that to me by Thursday at noon. Thank you.
Can I make a brief public comment?
Go for it.
Anthony Dispensary, for the record. I just talking a little bit more about the topic we talked about previously. We're ignominiously the fastest, warming city in the country, and I do think that we should, have an emphasis, a task force, something that's proactively trying to mitigate the negative effects that we're seeing that are rapidly changing our community faster than everyone else is. I would like to see some kind of a, maybe there's some kind of a city task force or something that can be done to really focus on what can we realistically do to try to change some of that in a local way. I know there are opportunities locally for tree planting and possibly helping residents to get water to the strip between the sidewalk and the street in certain ways to facilitate, better tree canopy and other things. I'm sure there are other things that can be done that other experts, I'm not an expert, can probably help with some of that. And I know that Ward 3 is probably the hottest ward in the city. So I'd really like to see like an emphasis, a focus placed on that, because I think it is really an existential issue for us in this city. So I hope that we can find more of a focus. The city has some kind of more of a concerted effort on that. I don't know what that should look like. And that's just me shouting into the void, I guess. But that's the way I feel.
Marie Rodriguez, for the record, I'm sorry to come in, but you just reminded me of something that I've been wanting to bring up for a while now. I remember City Council Member Dewar, and it's been probably a year or even longer since she posted something about having heard about tiny forests. And it was something that she was interested in maybe examining and being able to implement in Reno. I would like to maybe make that an agenda item. I'll try to research the information where she found it and maybe find out who is behind this program. And if I can find that, I will email you that. And maybe we can make that an agenda item because I am interested in that tiny forest program. I want to talk to her further on it, and we just never did connect on that. So if we could do that.
Yeah, if everyone's done with their public comment, I'll say just on the topic of urban heat and that sort of thing, we do have an urban forestry commission that deals with this sort of stuff. So that might be a good place to start. Councilwoman Dewar is the council liaison there. So if you connect with her and you get that contact, that's also a great resource. And our urban forester, Matt Basil, is on that that board as well. I can't remember when they meet, but their agendas are on the city website where you find all the other agendas. But yeah, Marie, let me know if you get a contact for that.
right. Well, then thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thank you everybody for coming to tonight's meeting. Thank you for your time and your great questions and your spirit of curiosity. I would like to adjourn this meeting. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
The second, Anthony Dispensary.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.